What's up guys, BrunsNick here, and I've been getting a lot of questions on my Sarge Easter Grip. There's not a whole lot of information out there, but I'm going to do my best to talk about it, why I went to it, and what benefits I see out of it. But first, we're going to go take a trip down memory lane, where it all started from when I started bowling to all the way to present day. So we're going to go through all these bowling balls and talk a little bit about my grip, how I went to the Sarge Easter Grip, what got me there, why I went away from the Sarge Easter Grip, and why I'm now back permanently. All right, let's start from the beginning. In juniors, I had an older brother. He bought a lot of bowling balls, so I got the hand-me-downs. That's what you see here. Now this grip was later, I guess we would consider that a semi-finger grip. Beautiful ball, by the way. The Stingray was actually the last ball I threw before I signed the Brunswick staff in late 2002. All right, I use this ball in league quite a bit. I call it the Stinky Pinky. I don't know why, but it sounded funny. So anyway, back then, I mean, the fit didn't really matter. You know, our finger grips were about the same size. The thumb, you know, we both used the same type of oval. Back then we used our vinyl ovals and we used a lot of tape. So his thumb was a little bit bigger than mine. I put in a load of tape and voila, I have my own bowling ball. So back when you're a kid, you know, you got an older brother, 5 years older, that actually is employed, has, you know, spends his money on bowling balls. Guess what? I get all his hand-me-downs. So that's what we have here. I believe the total span on this thing was 4 inches total, somewhere in there. Not a whole lot. It's, you know, but it worked fine. You know, I used this up until about 2002, 2003, right in there. Back then, you know, I got my PBA card because I started bowling regionals, cashed in the first 2 or 3, was kind of forced to get it. Biggity bam, here I am, professional bowler at the age of 22, 23 years old. I found out pretty quick on tour, well, on the regional tour, that I was not as competitive as I wanted to be. You know, I was starting to see a little bit of hand problems. I was grabbing this ball a little bit. I definitely didn't lack in the revs or the ball speed back then, but I was finding myself less consistent as the time went on. So I started to make some grip changes, as we all do. I said, you know what? I think I can go to no grips. No grips. We're going to recheck my span, which happened to be closer to about 4.5, 4 9/16 total span. Went with no grips. Worst mistake of my bowling career. Just gonna say it. I personally have a lot of swelling issues. I had swelling issues here, but going back to the fingertip grip with a little longer span, this is where I had the biggest issue and the only tournament in my history that I've ever had to withdraw from. There was bowl practice, no problem. I had been bowling with this grip a few months and it was fine, but I was bowling in Vegas in a regional. Got to about game 2 in the tournament and one shot just felt a pop sensation in my hand. Didn't really hurt, but it was kind of like a shock. And then I started to feel like my hand just couldn't make a fist anymore. You know, I couldn't grip the ball, I couldn't throw it, and then started feeling a little bit more pain. Not so much of a shooting pain, but just a really dull, drawn out pain where I couldn't get anything on the ball. Had to withdraw from the tournament. You know, first I saw my doctor. There was nothing physically torn or anything broken or anything in my hand that was permanently wrong. So they sent me to a specialist. They took a look at it and they basically said, well, your only options are rest and stretching. So he gave me a bunch of stretching exercises to do. I did all that, but I had to take, you know, almost a month off of bowling. And here I am, you know, I think I was 24, 25 at the time. You know, I was bowling a lot of regionals and I really wanted to get back out there, but I couldn't, you know, and I didn't want to go back to, you know, the hand-me-down grip, as I'll call it. And I knew that the no grips was never going to be an option again in my life. Just have so much swelling issues going up and down. You know, I'd be fine for day 1, go to day 2, I'd have to like be carving out the fingers, and then, you know, the next time I come around, I'm having to add tape to the finger. So it was a very painful and failed experiment. Then I started doing some research, and around that time, Robert Smith had started using the Sarge Easter Grip. So I started experimenting with it. And this was the first iteration of that time. And this is actually one of the original balls, the Zone Classic, that came out around that time. We also made one more change, and this was when vacuum inserts were starting to become a thing. So going to a vacuum grip install to help with the swelling. I think I was still taping my fingers then at the time, but this was the first iteration of the Sarge Easter Grip that I used. Back then there was no interchangeable thumbs. At least they were very rudimentary and they were breaking all the time, so we didn't use them. I used a lot of molds or slugs or whatever in that time. But the first thing I noticed when I used the Sarge Easter Grip comparatively, I didn't change the span or anything like that, was I felt like I had to go a little bit more forward in the thumb just to feel like I grip it, because this grip does tend to alleviate grip pressure issues. So I had to feel like I was hanging on to it more. It's like, it almost felt like my span was a little bit shorter when I switched to it. The other thing I noticed, my first shot when I threw Sarge Easter was I popped. Like that pop when you come out of the finger holes or the thumb hole or whatever and you pop. I hate that noise with a passion. So I immediately drilled a vent hole, which I still do to this day, in the ring finger, because I like to have the ring finger exceptionally tight. So I used this grip for quite a while. I think for 2 years I bowled with Sarge Easter, and I was having more success. I was being able to bowl tournaments without having, any kind of pain, any kind of discomfort. There wasn't any issues. But then I started feeling like, okay, well, maybe my hand's better. Let's take a look at my grip again. And so in about 2006 is when I went back to fingertip, and we made a lot of changes with the grip and everything. We went to a molded thumb and a lot more reverse pitch in the fingers. I actually went to a lady oval, which I think I was somewhere around 3/4 in this finger and maybe only 1/4, because my middle finger was never really an issue there. The span didn't really change. This particular ball was the ball that I shot my highest series with. This is a red zone. So immediately had success, started shooting some big numbers. I was going away from tape. I wasn't using tape at all on my fingers anymore. And it was fine for a while. And I used that for a few years, no problem. As I started bowling less, when I got hired by BrunsNick in 2010, I started going on the road more. I wasn't doing a whole lot of bowling from probably 2010 to 2012. I was always having issues going forward, in tournaments where, using this grip, and there was a few iterations of this with minor changes and whatnot, but I was starting to develop these cuticle issues, ingrown fingernail issues, swelling issues, where I would bowl the tournament and I'd have no problem pretty much from day one, day two, but anytime I made the finals, I was finding myself battling getting my fingers in the ball, or just having pain because of an ingrown nail. These problems kept popping up, and bowling through all that and bowling through pain, my grip pressure was going sky high. And I remember one tournament driving home from Vegas, something about Vegas, I don't know, but I cashed in the tournament. I grinded a check and made the finals, but on my way home, and I think this was in late 2013. We had just finished bowling in Vegas. Driving home, I could just feel like these sharp shooting pains all up from my elbow all the way to my fingers, and my hand was twitching pretty much to drive from Las Vegas all the way to Northern California. And right then and there, I was just like, man, I'm having all these issues, a lot of pain. I really need to go back to Sarge Easter, I think. So in early 2014, I made a decision. I'm going back to Sarge Easter. I'm going back to the grip. We're going to pretty much go back to this iteration. So we went pretty much back to this immediate success. When I say immediate success, I'm shooting numbers, big numbers in regionals. And most importantly, I'm able to go from day one all the way to day 3 without having any hand issues. And that's huge for me. Now, fast forward to today, this is what my grip looks like now. Right around in 2016, I got with Mo Pinnell. We made a few changes with the span. He shortened me up a little bit. We started using a lot more forward in the thumb hole. and a lot more reverse pitch in the ring finger. Whereas when I started here, I was only using a quarter reverse. Here, we're using 3/4 reverse on this new iteration. The finger pitch in the middle finger is a quarter reverse, quarter left. So that hasn't changed from pretty much day one. I've never really had much of an issue here. It's always been on the ring finger. And ever since, Mo fit me, shortened up the span, gave me a little more forward here, a little more reverse here. That's what I've stuck with for the past 7 years, and 0 issues. Now, granted, I don't bowl as much, but this has been the most comfortable grip I've ever used. I don't see myself going away from it anytime again in the future. I've just had too many problems trying to branch out and go to fingertip. We've got one less finger to worry about. Now, let's talk about what I feel are the advantages to Sarge Easter Grip for me. Number one is the grip pressure. I don't have to squeeze this ball as much. I can go tighter with the thumb hole, tighter with the ring finger, and tighter with the middle finger. I feel like I'm really locked in the ball and not have to grab it. My hand doesn't get chewed up. I can bowl a lot of games, and I don't see the wear and tear that I would with a standard fingertip, or at least that I did in the past. I imagine it's not going to be any different nowadays. So the grip itself does look kind of weird if you look at it. I always get questions like, oh, why is your thumb hole right over here? But it's actually a very simple grip. It's 2 parts to the grip. Is the full fingertip grip on this side and the conventional grip over here. Now, you can make this change pretty simple and test it on a ball of your own if you got fingertip by plugging it and going, to a conventional. So you got to see it in 2 different parts. So if you were to cover this up, it looks like a fingertip. If I were to cover that up, now it looks like just a standard conventional drilled ball. So the center line still goes between the 2 fingers all the way down to the thumb and bisects it. So I guess the main question is, do I lose any rev rate? Do I start spinning it more? Do I have a lot more tilt? What does my hand feel like when it's in the ball? Well, I've always said that when your hand's in the ball, especially Sarge Easter Grip, you should feel absolutely nothing. Your hand should just feel like it's in there, disappears, there's no strain or anything like that. Some people have had issues with not using enough right pitch or using too much bridge here, and they've asked, hey, I'm getting pain on the inside of my ring finger, what can I do? And it's always typically too much bridge or not enough right pitch to alleviate that symptom. So that's number one. So, if you got questions on the grip, I'm always happy to help if you're looking to try it out. But that's it from juniors all the way to modern day. These are all the grips that I've used in my time with minor changes here and there. But this is pretty much it from day one. We've got a lot of relics here and a lot of stuff that I wouldn't mind having again. But if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. I'll be glad to answer them. Until next time.